Right, we're going to look at another example, E8-10, and this is on page 466 of your textbook. And what I've shown here is what is seen in the textbook. So this example is more of a real life example. When you go to prepare a bank reconciliation at the end of the month, you have your accounting records, and that's what we see here. It says, this is the general ledger cash account. It showed these following transactions. So this is what's actually recorded in your accounting records. Therefore, this is the books part of our accounting for cash. Then the question says this is the bank statement for the end of the month. So this is our bank. This is what you would have in real life at the end of the month when you go to prepare the bank rec. So what you do is you actually look at both and you compare them to see what is in both places. And if it's there in both places, it's fine. We can just cross it off. Then we get down to what isn't crossed off because it's not on both the book side and the bank side. And those are our reconciling items that we need to pick up on the bank rec. So basically you just walk through, cross out what's in both places, and then see what's left, use it in the bank rec. Okay, so we can start going through and do this. I suggest start in one place. So start on the books, go through and cross out when you see it in the bank. So the first item is a deposit on the 20th. If we look into our deposits on the bank statement, yes, we can see that there. So cross it out in both. Next, we have check 233 for $6,000. Check 233 in both places, so cross it out. Then we've got check 234 on the bank or on the book side for $18,000, and yes, it's on the bank. So cross it out in both. Next on the books is a deposit for $18,000. We see that in the bank. Cross them both out. Then a check written for check number 235 written for $5,000. We can see that on the bank statement. Cross it out. A deposit of $5,200. Yes, it's in both places, so cross it out. Now we have check 236 and 237, but those are not being withdrawn on the bank statement. So we can't cross those out. These are going to be reconciling items. And what type do you think they are? So a check that's been written and mailed out, so it's recorded on the books, but it hasn't cleared the bank, is a outstanding check. So these two items will be our outstanding checks. Next, we have a deposit for $10,500, but that does not show up on the bank either in our deposits column. So another reconciling item. So we've got the cash, it's been recorded but hasn't gone to the bank yet. This is a deposit in transit. So these three items that are not crossed out, we'll have as reconciling items on the bank rec. Now we also can see that there's these three items left on the bank statement. So 2 service charges and interest. Now if we look back to the textbook, I don't have this part copied here, but on page 467 right below the bank statement, it says, Padilla Rental Company informed its bank that the bank charged a service charge twice. And we can see those here. The bank has agreed to reverse one of the bank charges on the next month's bank statement. So the bank made an error and charged this twice. So one will stay and one will be reversed, and that is an error. So we'll have to have those as reconciling items as well as this interest that we earned. Okay, so we can go ahead and prepare the bank rec. That is what the question says. Prepare Padilla Rentals Company's bank reconciliation at October 31st. So I've got this set up here. You can do this quickly or as we go. If you want to pause it and set it up, that's great. to do a bank rec, we always start with the company name. It's the bank rec, and this is the date. And here I've got the bank portion above, books portion below. It's fine if you do it side by side. Either works as long as you're keeping them separate and you have the two portions separated out. Okay, so we know when we start a bank rec, we start with each of the opening amounts. So for the bank, we start with the ending bank balance at whatever day we're doing this. So what does the bank statement actually tell us is the bank balance at October 31st? So to find that, we flip back here, we look to our bank side, and in this far right column, we have the running balance. So we go to the end of the month, and that is our ending bank balance, $16,764. So we can put that here, $16,764. And then we do the same thing for the books. So what does our general ledger actually tell us is the bank balance, or our balance in our cash account right now? So we can look to the GL, the balance is on the right side again, and at the end of the month, we see this balance of $19,450. So that is our books balance. And now we basically go through each item that we haven't crossed out and put it into the bank rec. So if it's found on the books, it's recorded in our records but not in the bank, it needs to go on the bank portion of the bank rec. So we've got two checks, 236 and 237. We know these are credits, so it's checks we've written. They've cleared the books but not the bank. These are the outstanding checks that we noticed, or that we noted earlier. And these get subtracted on the bank side because it's going to be money coming out of the bank once they clear. So we'll subtract outstanding checks, and we need to actually note the specific check number so we can look and see if they've cleared in the following month. Check 236 and check 237. This one was $3,300, and 237, $4,750. So we can see those amounts here as withdrawals. So we can just give them a little check mark that yes, we've reconciled those two amounts or included them here. And we can do a subtotal for these. So 3,300 plus 4,750 gets us total outstanding checks of $8,050 that we need to subtract. Okay, so we've checked these two off because we've got them on the bank rec. Now we have this deposit. So $10,500 in the books but not the bank. That is a deposit in transit, and we need to add that into our bank rec because it's eventually going to go into the bank. So it goes on the bank side and it's added. So we have our deposit in transit, and it was for $10,500. So we see that there. We've done it, so we can give it a check mark as well. Okay, so far we've dealt with the items that were in the books but not in the bank. So now we need to go down to our bank statement and look at what we have recorded here that's not in the books yet. So these service charges we talked about, one is going to stay, but one is going to be reversed. So if it's a real bank service charge, like this first one, that's actually something that will now need to be recorded in the books. So we put that on the books side of the bank statement, or on the book side of the bank rec, sorry. And we're going to subtract it because it's money that's going to, or that's coming out of our bank. So we need to subtract it from the books. So we'll make a note of service charges. And just for the one, so for $120. Okay, so we can check off the first one. Now the second one, that the bank agreed, as it said in the question, the bank has agreed to reverse one of the bank charges. So since it's an error on the bank's part and they are going to put that money back into our account, we actually need to reconcile for that on the books portion, or sorry, on the bank portion of the bank rec. Because next month, the bank is going to put that back into our account. So it's going to go back into the bank, and therefore we add this on the bank portion. So we'll add the bank error and make a note that it was a doubled service charge. Or you could say the bank error, reverse service charge, something like that. Just noting what it is and that it's on the bank side. So we're adding $120. It will go back into our bank next month. Okay, so that's the two service charges we've dealt with. So again, we can put a check mark there. Yep, we've dealt with it. The next item is this interest that we can see. So $4 was deposited into the bank account. So that's money that we just get to keep, but it hasn't been recorded. So we're going to add it on the books side. Because we actually got that, we need to record it. So we'll add interest revenue. And it was a beautiful $4 that we received. Oops, I just noticed I had this in the wrong line too. Okay, so we've gone through, we've got a little check mark, we've dealt with all of our reconciling items, so now we can put in our totals. So if we're on the bank side, we can have this subtotal here. It's good just so that you remember to start subtracting. So 16,764 plus 10,500 plus 120 is 27,384. So there's no name for that, it's just a value. And then we now have our subtract. So we're going to minus 8,050. And if you want to show it in brackets so you remember to subtract it, you can do that. And it gets you to 19,334. And we do the same thing on the book side. So 19,450 plus $4 gets us to the subtotal of 19,454. And then we subtract. We're on the subtract part here. Subtract 120. And we get to our adjusted book balance of 19,334. And make sure you put these headings at the bottom here, that it's the adjusted book balance and the adjusted bank balance at October. And they agree to each other. So good. We've clearly put everything in here properly since they agree. Okay, so that is a look at a bank rec. Again, there's another one noted that you can practice on your own in a similar form to this one.